Hi guys. So I'm trying something a little different here. Today I kind of wanted to talk about altars, and I very much wanted to do this in the daylight, but that just is not a possibility with what is happening in my life right now. I very rarely get any time away from my children during the day, especially because my husband is working a lot at the moment. But anyway, today I really wanted to talk about altars. This is going to be a little bit of a 101 video, which I honestly have not done much of, and I'm starting to think that I kind of want to put a few witchy 101 videos out every now and then, just because when I had first started on this path, I had a lot of questions, and if I can help answer those questions for other people, I'm more than happy to do so. I know, especially a lot of my friends who watch this channel are definitely more seasoned witches, but hopefully you will have some fun experiences of watching just what my altar is to me. With that, I will preference that pretty much anytime I share this stuff on my channel, it is always from my own experiences, what works for me. So please take that into heart and do what works for you. You don't have to do things a certain way. It just, sometimes it's nice to have a foundation or a guideline to follow, and then you can branch out from there. So this is my altar, and well, what is an altar? This is a question my 5-year-old son recently asked me, and my response was, it's a place of worship. The best thing that I could do to describe that for him was, I said, you know how your grandma and your grandpa go to church? And he said, yes. I said, well, this is a place of worship to me, just as their church is a place of worship to them. Now, an altar can be many things. It can look many different ways, and it can be set up in countless different ways. When I first started out, my altar was on the top of my dresser in my teenage bedroom. And it remained that way until I moved around quite a bit. So there were times where it was on a TV tray, there were times where it was on the top of a wooden chest, which wasn't very great because then when I needed to get something out of that chest, I had to take apart my whole altar. That didn't work either. Then for the longest time, it was an IKEA table. And once I bought this house in 2015, I actually saw that my sister-in-law had some old furniture from the 70s, and she had this. But this is one of those hexagon tables that were super popular in that era, and it was just a wood finish. And I asked her if I could have it, and she said she was more than happy to do that. So I painted this kind of a dark blue. I really kind of wanted it to represent the night sky, and then I did all the embellishments and the hardware in silver. There is also a carved out hexagon shape right here, as you can see, that I also painted silver. And the nice part about this one is that it is a cabinet, so there are cabinets underneath, and I keep a lot of things that I need for ritual, or if I'm changing out my altar, just stuff that I use very regularly that I want to get at pretty frequently. I used to keep my herbal apothecary in this cabinet, but then I kind of found that wasn't functional. I'm all about how to make my altar as functional as I can. So that's something, if that's really how you work, that's something that you can consider. There's lots of different ways to make your altar really functional, or honestly, if you just want it to be a little bit more chill, you could just do a shelf. I have several altars in my room. This is my main working altar, but I have 3 others, and the 3 others are shelves. So it really can be what you make of it. Now, at the time that I am filming this, we are just a few weeks away from Ostara, and I have yet to set up my altar for Ostara. Most often, my altar will be set up seasonally, or through the Sabbats. And in the times where I don't decorate very heavily, or maybe I don't resonate towards that certain Sabbat, my altar tends to be mostly in a whatever I am working on, whatever thing that I want to manifest, whatever thing I'd like to focus on for the time being, and there's always a place for my deities. So at the moment, right now I have a current working, as you can see right here. This is a spell that I'm doing. This will conclude on the full moon. And then the rest of this, pretty much for the time being, is most of this is for Freya. This whole part back here is for her. This is her candle. I really want to purchase a 7-day candle for each of my deities and have that decorated with perhaps a photograph and some symbols, runes for them. But for the time being, I am very fond of Tealights. As you can see, I use Tealights very frequently, more so than almost any other candle in my practice. I will use spell candle, like these chime candles you see right here, or I will use sometimes even birthday candles just because they burn really quickly. So if I don't want to sit and watch a candle burn for eons. For longer things, I really prefer 7-day candles. Taper candles are also nice for that as well, but you do have to watch them because of the drip. So, but mostly I utilize Tealights, especially because you can get a very large pack of them for very cheap, and they last a really long time. I think the pack that I bought at IKEA, I probably bought about 10 years ago, and it's still going strong. So, that's the thing that I also like to do with Tealights is I will take, after the wax has melted down a little bit, I will put herbs and oils a little bit in there depending on what I want it to correspond with. All of these Tealights have a purpose, and this is my working candle. I use this for almost everything. It has a pentacle on it, and oftentimes I will just put a protection oil or something in there. I have 4 of these, and sometimes you'll see all 4 on my altar, sometimes not. Right now, I really wanted to have the presence of duality of light and dark on my altar. So this is my light, this is my dark, and then this is a beautiful tea light holder that's made out of soapstone, and it has the sun and the moon, so that's kind of that duality, that balance there. I'm trying very hard not to burn myself as I do this. And then of course, as I said, that one back there is for Freya. So this is a perfect example of a setup that I have when I'm in between sabbats and I have other things that I want to focus on. This happens periodically. It's just the way that I do things. Oftentimes, if I am not all in for a sabbat, and it's one of the ones that I tend to have a little bit more of a passing nod to, you will see a passing nod to that on my altar. I always like to have somewhat of a representation of that. This will be deconstructed probably next week, as soon as the full moon passes, and that I plan to film and do a time lapse for you guys. On the back here, I have a beautiful cloth that I just bought that has the Wheel of the Year on it. Before that, it was that triple moon one that you guys have seen. I have hung that behind my altar for probably the last 10 years. And I was sitting here recently and I thought, you know what, it's time to change it up. So I had my eye on this one for quite some time, and I ended up purchasing it because I found it for very cheap. Prue's loving the tripod. Next to my altar here is a small 3-cubed bookshelf. I used to keep all of my tarot and oracle decks on here. I have since moved them. They might move back. I don't know. For the time being, though, I have actually put reference books here. So if I'm doing a spell or anything like that, I like to have books where I can just grab, and these are the ones that I frequently grab. This whole section is for tarot, and then down here, I know the lighting's not great. I will do a full tour of this if you guys ever want to see. Here is all stuff on Norse mythology, the runes, all that stuff, Norse paganism, and then down below is your kind of typical witchy reference books. I've got a book on the Sabbats, I've got the correspondence book by Llewellyn, and a few others. So I won't get into that right now, especially because, like I said, if you guys want to see this shelf in more detail, I can certainly do that. My Book of Shadows also sits here too. And then atop this shelf right here, which I know you can't see at the moment, is the altar to Frigga, which I did recently do a video on. And then above here sits my moon altar, which I can do a video on if you guys want to see a tour of that. The things that I commonly do at my altar, of course, are spell work, meditations. Sometimes I like to just light up my candles and just sit. And oftentimes, for instance, perfect example, last night I just took out my drinking horn here, and I filled it with water, and I just sat and I spoke to Freya, and I enjoyed water, and then I poured some in her offering dish, and that will go outside on the ground. There are many, many things you can use an altar for. There are many different ways an altar can look. This is just how I like to have it, and you don't always have to have it go through the cycles of the seasons or represent the Sabbats. I just like to do that because having the constant changing up of my altar kicks up the energy, it keeps it cleansed, I keep it well dusted, and I just noticed that if I'm more hands-on and I'm honoring the cycles of the seasons, that I'm more involved and I'm more connected. And that's just what works for me. The other thing that you can do with your altar is, quite honestly, you can have it really, like I said, on anything. You can also do a travel altar if you don't want to do a big grand altar such as this, although I don't think this is super grand. Sometimes I wish I had more space, truthfully, but as a working altar, I personally like to keep it more simplistic and less cluttered. That's just me. So if you guys have any other questions on altars, I hope I kind of covered the basics on how it works for me, what I like to do with my altar, and what my altar is. But if there are any questions that you guys have, please leave them down below. I'm more than happy to answer them, and I'm more than happy to do more extensive videos. I plan on obviously making more videos involving my altar. It is my favorite place in my house. And aside from, you know, the kitchen where the coffee maker is. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, thank you for watching, and blessed be.